So Charles, you've been at this for a long time, a lot of different roles. How's deliverability different now than when you were postmaster at AOL?
Well, back in the day, there was a lot more human intervention. We used a lot of machine and algorithms now. And not that we didn't at that time as well. We tried to automate as much as we could, but we always used people in the process to determine what was and what was not spam. The spam complaints were one of the biggest contributors because we figured if our customers aren't going to complain about it, there's no reason to block it because we're going to get it delivered. I think now we're dealing a lot more with more advanced technology to identify what somebody would or would not report as spam as opposed to using the actual spam reports. So it's great that we're automating now, getting a little more streamlined, more efficient, but I think we're also getting a fair number of false positives because I don't know about you guys, but the high 80s and low 90s for inbox rate seems higher than what I see quite often. And I think that if delivery were as good as that, I think we probably wouldn't have everybody running to the different ESPs saying, we need help. It's a hard job.
So you saying the numbers are wrong?
No, I'm not saying the numbers are wrong. I'm saying that depending upon which segment you're looking at, I think delivery is a bigger challenge than most of us realize. Even if you're doing the right things and pursuing the best practices, I think you're still going to run into deliverability problems.
So you've been the postmaster running the service. You've been a good mail doing certification. You've been on the sender side of it. Is deliverability an art or a science? Like, can you know all the rules and then just do it right? Is it defined, or is it like, is there some magic in there where some people have this, a special touch?
Dare I say, it's the art of understanding the science of getting people to understand the message. It's a real mess. You've got to be able to understand the science. There is a pure science back there that's determining whether your message is going to get delivered or whether it's not. Unfortunately, the algorithms and the tools for that science are not privy to us. They're for the ISP, and for good reason, because if they release it, then everybody will know how to get around it.
It's like when everyone got the CNN terrorist handbook.
Exactly.
Like Southerners.
But at the same time, it is important because there are people involved. At the very end of this transaction, you're sending a message, and the message is intended not to hit somebody's computer, but to hit their eyeballs and get them to act.
Right. So I'm the CIA handbook, not the CNN handbook. CIA, those terrorists. Anyway, so Tom, I want to talk about reputation. I remember I was, and Ian, who's sitting over there, we were both involved in the early stages of developing SendScore. We were putting that together, and there's a lot of comparisons to a reputation score, your credit score, and things like that. And at the time, we were like, okay, well, we all know domain. This is like a long time ago. We all know domain reputation is coming, but everything's based on IP now. In fact, I think we started making it based on both, but then decided it wasn't worth it. It's just IPs for a while. And I know more domain's been added to it. Can you talk about where you see that transition going? Like, are we ever going to get to domain-based reputation, or is IP still going to rule the day for a long time?
So IPs will probably rule the day for a while, but we absolutely have to go towards domain reputation, and the reason for that is because we have to move to IPv6. Right now, there's a very small subset of IP addresses out there, and it's almost out. When we switch to IPv6, we have a number that I can't even fathom of IP addresses, meaning that you could actually send out a campaign. Let's say you have 1 million addresses on file, you can actually send out a campaign and assign each subscriber their own unique IP address. And you could keep doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that. So to assign an IP reputation is going to be useless at that point because you can just switch IPs so much more easily. So with that in mind, we have to move towards domain reputation. And a return path, we're actually working towards that for certification. So in maybe at the end of this year, we'll have the ability to certify senders based on the reputation. We'll be porting that technology over to SendScore and things like that. And then when Charles, I think when you were at AOL still, you guys were working on domain reputation. I think that's on hold after everyone left, but.
Right. Well, I think it's actually not only going to be domain reputation, I think it's going to get even more granular than that. I think each one of us in this room and every consumer in the world is going to have their own domain reputation for what they think of your messages. If you're a major airline, you might have a great domain reputation, but to somebody that doesn't want to fly and never wants to fly, that reputation means nothing. And I think it is going to get more and more granular. And we always trying to draw the correlation about credit scores. You know, credit scores are good, but they're not universal in the sense that if you want to take out a $100 loan, nobody's going to pull your credit. If you want to take out a $1,000 loan, they're probably going to pull one credit bureau. And if you want, you know, $50,000, they're going to pull all three. And if you want to take out a home loan, they're going to pull all three. Do some averaging, and they're going to look back 10 years, not 7. So it depends upon the level of what you need. I think that we're going to eventually all have our own reputation of everybody that's sending mail to us, and I think that's really the evolution of the social inbox. Who do you interact with, and who do you not?
So that's a great point. You know, certainly what I'm hearing, the buzz all around these days is around, I think the same thing you're talking about. I usually hear it referred to as engagement-based, right? Really looking at on an individual level, is this person opening messages from these other senders? You know, how do they click this as spam? How do they, you know, priority inbox, I believe, really looks at, you know, who do you reply to and, you know, messages that you interact in that way. And so in essence, it's like everyone gets their own spam filter. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that too. Tom, Isaac, are you seeing any impact on that for you? Does that make it harder to measure deliverability when it's different for different users, or does it not change it?
As far as
reputation change can be not just based on how many people click this as spam, but other factors like individual users opening and clicking and things like that. Are you guys not seeing that being an impact?
Well, there are a lot of things that affect deliverability again, and it depends also on ESPs. Like you mentioned, priority inbox. One of the things that they look at is how many emails you reply to and things like that. So it varies on different factors based on the ISP. So I know if you do things to, for example, AOL measures engagement. If you take random samples to deliver them to an inbox to measure deliverability, it can actually affect your deliverability by measuring deliverability. So
it's like a theory of relativity for email.
Heisenberg uncertainty principles with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Heisenberg's principle. So it just depends, and that's why deliverability is really hard.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think too so the engagement level filter is really built on top of kind of the global filter. So you have your own sending reputation based off of either your IP address or in the future your domain, which just determines where your message is going to be delivered. Is it going to go to the inbox as spam folder, or is it just going to be sent to a black hole? And at that point, then the engagement level filter kicks in. So if I'm clicking on opening Charles's emails all the time, it'll always be delivered to my inbox, and I don't have to worry about it. So it's not really the be-all end-all. It's just another level of filtering.
So back to shared IPs. Right now, if I have a shared IP system, I'm not eligible to be sender score certified.
That's correct.
Does domain reputation change that?
Yeah, domain reputation will be able to change that. So if you are on a shared IP, so if you're a customer of Constant Contact, MailChimp, SendGrid, whatever, if you're using a shared IP, the requirement will be obviously to sign with DKIM. That's the only way that we can actually track a domain-based reputation, and then you can get certified. And like I mentioned, that will probably be coming third quarter, fourth quarter, but don't shoot me if we miss that deadline.
Great. So Charles, good mail's officially gone. But the nail's in the coffin. They're done. They're not certifying mail anymore. Good mail, if you're not familiar with it, I don't think they weren't messaging this way at the end, but early on it was stamps for email. You have to be certified. Not anybody can do it. If you pass the certification, you can pay a per message fee and have guaranteed delivery that you know it's going to get there with confirmation and pay to deliver your priority, these high priority emails. Do you think, is that the end of the story? Is you ever going to be able to pay for emails, or is that done?
No, I don't think that's the end of the story. I think there's certainly room for paid email. Maybe not all email. And when I say that, first of all, understand a lot of people say email is free. It's not free. When you get on your Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail account, AOL account, it's not free. It's just paid for and subsidized by that ISP, and they pay for it and subsidize it by putting advertisements on there. So advertising actually pays for your email. And I think that advertisers know that they have to pay to deliver a message. They have to pay to put it on a billboard, TV, radio. or an email. So I do think that there is a model whereby you pay for commercial messaging and help to subsidize the cost of the service we would all otherwise interpret as free. So I think it's absolutely there. I don't know that it needs to have as much rigorous security around it and whatnot. I think that advertisers are ready to pay if you deliver their message, and there's a way to make it more convenient and more palatable for consumers where they're not barraged by messages. And putting a dollar sign in front of it causes advertisers to think twice before they can send you.
Great. Well, we are a little bit short today, and I want to make sure we have some time for some audience questions. So I think let's switch to that. We'll close with asking you guys each for your secrets, which hopefully you brought. But we have time for 2 or 3 questions from the audience if anybody wants to ask them. Back.
I know that sender-based docks IPs based on neighboring IP's reputation. Does Return Path do that as well, or are there any other providers out there that do that?
I don't know of any other providers that do that. We look at the domains, so we'll look at other sending IPs that may be sending on that domain, but we won't actually tie in the reputation for that. So we look specifically at each IP. So, if you're AOL.com and you're sending from 5 IPs, each of those 5 IPs will have its own sending reputation and its own deliverability as a result.
We did. We looked at everything coming off that Class C and we started digging around to see if somebody was jumping around. We would look at the domains to see if they were coming from different Class Cs. And if we saw you using a whole bunch of different IPs spread out across the Class C, Class C is effective.
Yeah, the question is regarding sender base, which is the basis of the iron port filtering system, just for everybody's.
And I don't know that that's still the case, but it was a few years ago.
Yeah, for our certification program, we do look at the overall reputation of all those IPs and factor them in, but not for the sender reputation. We just do that specifically for each IP.
Other questions? Well, I have 2 more to throw in. Or did this one? Okay.
Just a quick question. I'm currently using SendGrid, great service, but I'm using the shared API, and it seems like anytime you move to dedicated API, you have to go through this warm-up period. What's kind of the recommendation of how I do that? I don't want to kill deliverability in kind of the short term.
Well, that's a great question. We help you transition little by little to dedicated IP so that you get more. It usually takes about 2 weeks to do that. So you don't just migrate everything completely, you do it little by little. That's the process of warming up the IP.
So you split your traffic, keep some of it going off the shared system, and then build it up on the dedicated.
Correct.
Anybody else? Well, the two other things I really wanted to make sure we talked about. One was mobile, and I'll just throw this out to all of you. But does mobile change anything for deliverability? Okay, everyone's saying 50% or more of people are reading email on mobile devices. Does that change anything?
Well, mobile, you only check your email on mobile, but you're still retrieving it from the inbox on Gmail. So I'm not sure deliverability has to do much with mobile if you're checking from ISPs like Gmail.
So those are the same spam filter.
Exactly, and it's more about the rendering and how you read it than anything else.
Yeah, I think it can change, just the engagement filters, so just that personal level filtering, just because, like Hotmail uses, and popping into my, my inbox, they can't tell how I'm interacting with it. They don't know if I'm deleting it or if I'm clicking through and stuff. So that's where that becomes problematic. But the filtering is still, behind the scenes.
I agree. That I think it is about engagement, but I think you also have an opportunity as a marketer to make sure that you're getting your message to the person at the time you're out and about. If you're a retailer especially, that's probably what you want is people reading your messages on their mobile phone when they're at the mall versus sitting at home.
Yeah. The other question was priority inbox. So Gmail priority inbox made a big splash this year. A lot of people are using it. We've done some research at OtherInbox. Very few marketers are getting into the priority inbox. There were none at the beginning at all. Now we're seeing a little bit from Amazon and a few others. Is it affecting your customers or your business? Are you worried about priority inbox? Are your customers worried about it?
We actually introduced a feature called the Parse API, and this allows companies to, instead of putting no reply at domain.com on their email address, they can actually have a real address, and we can extract these emails and post them to web applications so that developers don't have to worry about email servers. And priority inbox is it looks at reply, so we actually encourage users to not use no reply at domain.com and put a real email address and interact with the customer that way. So that's one of the ways to actually play good with priority.
I'm on a personal crusade to stop no reply. I'm taking care of expiring emails first. But no reply, I can't believe you would send an email from no reply. Like, of course you want to see, if a customer wants to take the time to write back to you, like you want to read what they have to say. That's probably a really valuable input. But the point you're making is, that's one of the best things you can also do to increase your priority inbox deliverability is give them a reason to reply.
Right, and there are other ISPs that once you reply to an email address, it gets added to your contacts list, and you get a future email comes on your contacts list and automatically placed on the inbox. So, the two huge missed opportunities. One is the priority inbox and increased deliverability. The second one is the one you mentioned. It's like you missed the opportunity to talk to your customers.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to do that.
Way to tell them you don't care. Jerry, did you have a question?
I don't want to take it on tangents, I'll stop.
Okay.
How much does content of the email affect deliverability, and also are there tools that you can, or some recommended tools that you can kind of find out how much that matters?
I know content, it does affect deliverability, so try to send an email that has the word Viagra on it, you're probably going to have a hard time. So it does matter. There's a ratio between text and images, and filters like Stat Assassin look at this, and so content does affect deliverability a lot. If you don't have a text body, if you only have an HTML body, things like that, there are just so many tests on content that it definitely.
Yeah, and I think at Return Path we find that usually about anywhere from 12 to 17% of the time, deliverability issues are due to content. The other are due to reputation. And then if you look at that 12 to 17%, it's about 80% of the time it's due to the reputation of a domain within the content. So if you have like third-party filters, if you use like a third-party tracking company, something like that, most of the time deliverability is due to that.
It's a bad link or something like that. Now, where's that trending? I mean, I remember 10 years ago, it was all content. Right, like your message wasn't getting through, it'd be like, it was, binary search, right? Like split the message in half and send the first half and see if that gets through, send the second half, see if that gets through, and then, work your way down to it's that word causing the problem. And I just hear a lot less about that now, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I think because, spammers have said, okay, well, let's move on from the content thing, now we need to worry about reputation. So they're worried more about gaming that system as opposed to the content game.
I think it's not so much keywords that are causing you to get blocked now. I think it's phrases and heuristics and phrases and the number of times it's used and what size font it is, whether it's the same color as the background, etc.
White on white. Yeah. Great. Okay, well, we're just about out of time, but I do want to try to go to the secret, so hopefully you guys brought some. So, Charles, can I put you on the spot? Do you have a secret to share?
Sure. If anybody tells you they know the secret to delivery, they're lying. It's not a secret.
Oh, let's let you go last.
If we do that, I'll tell you what, I would keep it to myself. I'd sit in the room and be rich.
So Charles says no secrets. Tom?
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. And I would say, really the secret is to have a, great subscriber experience. Make sure you're getting permission, you have proper disclosure at the point of sign up, and then you're honoring that through the lifetime of the subscriber.
So in some ways, send the email people want.
Exactly.
I was going to say
I hope you're going to have a real secret, because they totally bailed on that.
And no reply at domain.com, but I think, it's already said that, I would say, just segregate your traffic and measure it. So if you're sending email marketing, and if you're sending transactional emails, why compromise the reputation of your account confirmations or shipping alerts or password resets for the email marketing, aggressive email marketing that you're doing, or email invites and things like that. So it's really important to segregate the reputation between domains, IPs, and stuff like that, and not compromise the deliverability of super important emails with like marketing emails.
But if you're still putting these IPs on the same C class, aren't you mixing their reputation to some extent?
We don't have, we haven't seen those problems, and plus we have thousands and thousands of IPs. So for us, we don't have that problem because we don't have a lot of senders that are that spam pretty much, right? So we catch spammers very fast, so we don't have that problem.
Be in good company. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to give Isaac the award for the best secret. I'm going to say the no reply one, which was meant to do. How do you get into priority inboxes? Encourage people to reply to your emails and don't send no reply. So that's what we have time for today.